First thing we'll do, let's come over here and create a new function block. And we're going to be retaining data. So now we are not going to use a function. We are actually going to use a function block. And function block diagram here. Hit OK. And I really should have given that a more interesting name. Let's see if it'll let me rename it. So right click on that guy and look at that. No option to rename. What a bummer. Well, in that case, I'm going to be a little bit stubborn. I'm just going to delete it and create it again. So let's call this alarm and hit OK. Alright, so now we've got what we wanted. And let's open this thing up. Actually, we're already opened here. And let's create some alarm logic. So this is going to be, let's make it a simple alarm. Let's make it something like an estop, okay? So the first thing that we want to do to set up this estop alarm is we are going to pull in a write trigger. So let's pull this over here, and what's happening here? This is telling us that as soon as this thing happens, we want to do something, one thing right away. So let's go ahead and start, and we'll create our estop variable right here. Right click, define that tag. That's going to be global memory and Boolean. That way we can control it and see it all over the place. So as soon as we click that, we need to store this, somewhere in global. So we'll just call this ONS1 because that's like a one-shot storage bit. And let's define that. And this one, we don't need to make this global because we don't need to look at this anywhere else. So we're just going to store it in the data block that we create with this actual function block. So this is going to be a local static bool. So it won't be visible anywhere else, but it will retain its value from scan to scan, and that's what we need to happen. So then we need to come over here, and when this happens, we want to latch. In this case, we're going to go ahead and latch our 2 bits. So I'm going to drag this set output right over here onto our queue, let it go, and we're going to set our estop alarm, and we're also going to set, we can drag that here or here, either one is going to basically do the same thing. And here we go, estop notification. There we go. So now once this happens, this estop happens, exactly one time we're going to set both of these 2 bits here. We're going to set them both to true. And we just need to define what they are. So these are both going to be global memory because alarm and notification bits, we want to be able to see those everywhere. Those are important. So global memory bool on both of those. Okay, so now that we've set those bits, what about resetting those bits? We're also going to want a way to disable those. So let's go ahead and pull in a reset down here. So let's grab that and drag it down here below. And what are we resetting? We're going to reset our estop alarm, and we're going to have another one down here disconnected to reset our estop notification, because those are going to reset a little bit differently. All right? So what are the conditions to reset these 2? Well, we want to make sure, 1, that the estop button is no longer pushed, and 2, that somebody is pushing either the alarm silence or the alarm reset button. Okay? So we're going to pull in an AND operator right here, and I'm just going to drop that right there on the input of both of these. Okay? Now, what are the two conditions to reset the alarm? Well, one, we're looking at that estop itself. Well, right now we're looking for the estop to be true, okay? So we don't want that. Let's come up here and take this invert RLO, and I'm going to drag that down here. And it's hard to see kind of, but you see how now it's got that little circle on there? That's basically like a normally closed contact. So now it's saying we want the estop to not be true. We want the estop to be false. And we want somebody to have pressed the alarm reset button. And we are going to go ahead and put that on a trigger because we don't like a button push which lasts several scans. We don't want that to keep having an impact over and over again. We want one button push, even if it lasts for 5 seconds, we want that button push to only do something once. So I'm going to pull another positive trigger right here, and we're going to look for alarm reset. And let's right click and define it. That's definitely going to be global memory and Boolean. And down here we can save our storage bit as ONS2. We need something separate from the one on top. So let's define that, and that's going to be local static because we don't want that to get lost from scan to scan, but we don't need to see it everywhere else. Okay, so now we have a way to stop our alarm once our alarm has been set. Let's come down here and do the same thing for our notification bit. So the first thing we know is we want the estop rather, to not be pressed anymore. Okay? And actually, you know what, now that I think about this, we can go ahead and reset the notification even with the estop still pressed, because we want to be able to disable any alarms and horns and things like that while the machine is worked on or whatever. So let's go ahead and just delete this stuff out of here. So we don't need that estop to be there, and we don't need this AND block to be there. So we've just got our reset on the notification, and we're really looking for either one of two things: somebody to push the alarm reset button, or somebody to push the alarm silence button. So let's come over here and take this OR and bring that down here. And we're looking for A or B, and we really don't care about the position of the estop. So let's take our alarm reset as one possibility and create an alarm silence as a second possibility. And of course we'll need to define that globally. Okay, so now we have a valid estop alarm configuration. If somebody presses the estop button, then we're going to immediately, and only one time, we're going to latch, because that's what this set is, we're going to latch the notification and the alarm bits. Now those two are going to stay energized until the only way we can get rid of the estop alarm is if A, the estop is no longer pushed, and B, somebody pushes the alarm reset. The notification bit is a little bit easier to get rid of. We'll disable that at any time that somebody either pushes the alarm reset or pushes the alarm silence. And the one thing we still need to put, we don't have those on positive triggers. So let's go over here and pull our positive triggers and just drop them right there in the middle, because we definitely want these on triggers. And let's give them a memory register that they can store their storage bits to, so that it knows from scan to scan whether alarm reset or alarm silence just transitioned. Let's define those, and of course those are going to be local statics. Define local static. There we go. Okay, so there we go. We've got our alarm set up. Let's go ahead and test this out. So the first thing we need to do is come into main and make sure that that gets energized somewhere and create a data for it. Okay, it's got a database and we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and throw this onto PLC Sim. There we go, we're up and running. And let's jump into the function block and let's monitor it. I'm going to minimize these properties. As you can see right now, we do not have the alarm stop, we don't have the alarm stop energized, we don't have the alarm, and we don't have the notification bit, so everything's clean. We also don't have the alarm reset or the alarm silence. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to take our estop right here and we're going to toggle it to true. And as soon as we do, you see we've got an alarm and we've got a notification. Okay? And now let's see if we can reset the alarm. First let's try and silence the notification, because if I reset, that's going to eliminate the notification, but I do want to test the alarm silence. So let's modify that to 1, and perfect. You see our notification disappeared, and let's modify that back to 0, and you notice it didn't come back on. So now let's test our alarm reset. I'm going to modify that to 1. And our alarm did not go away, which is good because we don't want it to go away while the estop is still pushed. So I went ahead and set the alarm reset back to false. Now let's disable our estop. So now we set that to 0, but you see our alarm is still there. Now, however, we can reset it. Now the alarm is gone. And modify back to 0, we're back to square one. So this is what it looks like when you chain function blocks together. You see, it's kind of like ladder logic. You've got a line running through them. It almost works like a little rung. But we're actually doing things conditionally, one right after another. And we can do simultaneous things at once, like setting 2 bits, whereas in ladder logic you generally don't do that. In some environments you're allowed to, and some you're not, but it's never a good idea. In function blocks, however, these things are made for that, so it works great. And we can set up an alarm like this, and we can make it something general. So like for an analog alarm, we can bring in a high set point, a low set point, a high high, a low low, and a value. And we can just recycle a generic version of this over and over again. And, look what we get whenever we create that. We just get this nice little alarm control that we can just drop into our program. And as long as this is energized, that's off in the background doing all the heavy lifting. Okay, and I know this doesn't belong in the alarm, but let's pull back up our instructions, go down to something more advanced like our count up, count down, and just drag that down here. And look at this. I mean, there it is, it's ready to go. And if you were paying attention during ladder logic, you already know exactly how to set this up because it looks exactly the same. It's just not on a rung anymore.